Welcome to Clubhouse with a review of the Bandai Exceed Model Zeta Head, which follows in a line of very popular Gundam Head Gashapon products. This time the target is the Zeta Gundam, and just as well because Bandai is really scraping the bottom of the barrel with the most recent release being this set of recolored RX-78 heads, with that blue one here being from the movie poster. I really admire who came up with the idea, but this is approaching like Krusty the Clown in The Simpsons.
So I'll just make some more money. Crank out some cheesy merchandise.
But you've already merchandised everything. Krusty's Monopoly game, the Krusty crowd control barrier. Nothing is selling anymore, not even
Movie poster colored Gundam head.
But our infomercials are running 24 hours a day.
Getting right down to business, the Exceed Model Gundam head was released on the second week of December 2021, and in case you didn't know, Bandai counts its Gashapon product releases like that by weeks of the month. Each draw is 500 yen, and there are 3 types in the entire lineup with no secret variants, which I'm always grateful for, because I don't think I would have had the extra money to get that for this review. Once again, I'm super lucky to be able to get this display card that's used for the actual Gashapon machine, and the Zeta Gundam in the background there is from the second opening at this exact frame. I'm sure some of you actually knew that once you saw the display card. The Exceed model line is a part of this particular class of products that are capsule list, which is technically true, the best kind of true, but I don't think it really means anything when they say it's eco-friendly, because if you look at the thing here, it's still encased with a lot of plastic on the outside that you have to throw away. Down here, it spoils the lineup for us with the Zeta Gundam, the Zeta Gundam Unit 3, and then the Zeta Plus, and it also reminds us that the product does not actually light up. The models are all made from ABS, as most Bandai Toy Division products are, so if you're painting these, do plan around that. The heads are heat sealed and wrapping, and there are 2 layers of this. If you've ever had any other Gundam head product or similar capsule-less toys, then you've seen this type of packaging before. There is the usual Gashapon sheet on the inside here, and then there is this little slip that you get in the regions covered by Bandai Namco Asia. The big gray shells are held together with a peg, and you can pull it apart. It's actually incredibly thick plastic, so again, this goes against that fancy claim that this is being eco-friendly because you throw these bits away. The part on the bottom here comes off, and this is actually partially the display stand, but the curved part on the left here is the outer shell that you also throw away. The gray ring here comes off as well, and then we can see a bag stowed away on the inside with some parts. These are the blade antenna parts, and you can see this is when Hobby decided to stop by in the background there. The head camera is tucked in, and you can turn it up to fully expand the head. The Gashapon sheet here is in black and white, and they've been doing this for many of the releases now, and it's always a bit of a shame, but maybe most people don't really care a whole lot for these. Opening it up gives us the lineup once again, and we absolutely cannot tell the Unit 3 apart from the plain Zeta like this. The other 2 pages have assembly instructions, which sometimes now they just put online, but I think it's always better to have it on the sheet like this. And the backside handles all of the contact info and the legal text. Here's the Bandai Namco Asia slip of paper that we saw earlier, and it too has a bit of legal text at the front. And on the back is a list of regional distributors, with Daniel & Co in Hong Kong working with Bandai for quite a few decades now I've seen. I think it's one of the 3 official distributors that they still work with today. These are toy products for collectors, but they are still toy products, so they don't require much work on your end, and they come together in a few minutes or even less. So the Zeta Heads come to you looking this great and all ready for display. One really good thing about them are the blade antenna, which are solid all the way through the back, which looks really great. Well, it's solid here on the Zeta. On the Zeta Plus, it's hollowed out, which is really inconsistent. The antenna can be turned up like this, and this is when the Zeta transforms. And this is actually a little bonus they put in since they didn't have to make the parts move like this. The Zeta Plus can do the same as well with its antenna. On the bottom of the crest here, we have the all-important Z molded in as an inset detail. You will need the colors in black, but it is still wonderful that this detail is already done here in the mold. But the part itself is a bit on the short side, even though you might not notice it because of how big the head is. An easy way to tell in modern proportions is that they make the antennas about as long as the head is tall. So here we can see that the antenna is quite a bit shorter than that. This was also true as well for the RX-78, and the one there is about that much shorter as well. And this is just a reality of how much space they have inside the head to deliver these parts. The surface of the head is grainy to give it a matte texture, and I say grainy because it's not super fine and small, and you will see a lot of the texture if you look at it really up close. But still, this is a very good choice, and it gives the idea that the head is supposed to be really big. Now, for some reason, they didn't apply that same texture to the rim on top with the head cameras, so we get this strange whiplash from the really nice matte texture to suddenly this glossy surface up at the top. It's exactly as obvious and as jarring as it looks right here, and it's something you're gonna want to fix with some sandpaper. What's worse is the glossy surface shows all its unevenness here. Now, I don't mean that this is a poor quality, this is just the reality of ABS molding when they make the plastic really thick. So this is Bandai actually trying to make these heads really durable, but you do see the side effects of all of it here. To give you an idea of how the matte texture is a conscious improvement, let's bring in the RX-78, and yes, it's clearly bigger, but we'll get to see more of that a little bit later. The RX-70 is smooth and glossy all the way, and side by side you can really tell how much better the Zeta communicates its size to us, where the RX-78 really feels a little bit like a toy. And while we have the RX-78 here, one of the worst things about it was how the top rim would often slide back into the head when you handled it. It may not seem like a big deal right here, but it really does get on your nerves because it really does happen a lot. Bandai clearly saw all the complaints about this, and the top here for the Zeta is wedged in place this time by the blade antenna, which you can't quite see just from the outside here. This is even better for the Zeta Plus, where that front camera outright locks that top piece in place with slits so it's not going to move at all. The other big complaint with the RX-78 is how it cannot be taken apart. No matter how you try, the head is locked together. Because this forehead part right here is actually glued on, and it is what locks the head shut. You need a saw to cut this part loose, and once you're inside, you see these sliding panels here? They look cool, right? But they are fitted with screws on the inside, so TLDR, these were a pain to take apart, and the RX-78 was the only product in the series to be like that, and fans just really didn't like it. For the Zeta, the process is not only doable, but it can be done without any tools, and you can separate all the parts for customizing and painting. Here we can see some of the painted parts like the vents on the side of the head, where the black is painted onto the white part and the Vulcan is masked off. The face is the same too, with the black part painted on. The eyes are clear green, and the backside has silver paint applied to it to give it that reflective sheen. The head camera looks really cool from the front with all that geometry on the inside, and all of that is actually just raised shapes on the other side that's coated with that same silver paint. It's very clever, and the results look wonderful from the front. Now, if we put the head back together a little bit, the back camera stands out here because it's not clear plastic. To make this part a little worse, there seems to be a gate here at the base for the molding, and you get this nasty cut that chews up the plastic, and this part doesn't look good. And to go back for a moment to the RX-78, one last problem to mention is how it just rests on the display stand with no attachments at all, so it lifts right off of it. On the Zeta, this is fixed as well, and the display stand is wedged into the head. Since we saw the head taken apart just now, in case you were wondering if you can modify the head with LEDs, you absolutely can. And not only is there a lot of space inside to hold everything in, but gaining access to this part here is just dead simple. A caveat here is the head camera probably can't be modded easily, because even if you strip all the silver paint off, there's only this small little slit that goes through into the back part here, so there's not a lot to channel the light to the front without some heavier alterations. Short of alterations, you can use UV light, and the clear green parts are UV reactive. The clear parts of the Zeta Plus are UV reactive as well, but I couldn't get the eyes to show up in the shot here. For surface detail and panel lines, there really aren't any, and it seems to have been a conscious choice, because if we go back to the first Zaku Head, we can see how they really packed it tight with lines and divided everything up into smaller panels. The second version of the Zaku Head is really no different, even though the design of the lines were completely redone. The RX-78 really is the same, with lines all around the head marking out panels that make up the armor. Then suddenly, on the Dom head, Bandai dialed it all back and gave us this very clean helmet with only a few flourishes. It's a really drastic change, but it was a very popular one, because fans really like having all this space to do their own styling, or to just keep it clean and vanilla like this. So that design is carried forward into the Zeta, where we get the basic geometry itself, and then the rest is left up to us to do whatever we want, and a lot of builders will really love this. Okay, so here's what the Unit 3 head looks like, and as you'd expect, it's exactly the same as the Zeta, but in different colors. The antenna is white, so it's actually unpainted, which actually makes it a better choice if you're wanting to customize and paint these. The forehead camera is green instead of blue, which might be something you want and is something you can't paint. The camera on the back is painted green instead of blue as well. This is probably what the Japanese would call the Hazure type, as in the one people don't really want in a set. I know there are people who like the Unit 3's colors, and that's just fine, but it is absolutely true that Bandai wants to get more mileage out of their mold here with the Unit 3, which reuses all the white parts with only less paint. And if what store owners and sellers have told me over the years are true, you always get more of these fillers in any lot that you order as a store owner, and this is like a Magikarp of Zeta Heads. I'm sorry if you like the Unit 3, but it's actually good news for you guys since it means it's super easy to get one of these from a machine. The big surprise here is the Zeta Plus, which does look quite a bit different from the Zeta Gundam. We get the proper elongated head of the Plus along with the hood of the air intake that's painted in blue. We've seen the blade antenna for a bit already, and this part can obviously be swapped out in the future to give us a Zeta Plus C2 of course, and you know they're gonna recolor this as well for the 2 hummingbirds as well, so there's that. A slightly ugly part here is this hole here that's just above the blade antenna. It's there for the clearance so that the antenna can fold, so it's a bit of a shame that there has to be this small trade-off. You do see this from time to time and it can bug you a little bit when you see it. Another ugly bit is this nasty cut here from a gate. It's very likely you will get the same ugly bit as well if you get one of these, and all these cuts are actually hidden away in other places that you can't see on the Zeta Head, so it's disappointing that this one right here is just way out in the open like this. But otherwise, this is the Zeta Plus, and everyone loves the Zeta Plus. People will probably be really happy to draw one of these. To study the parts here for a bit, here are the parts that's shared between the Plus and the plain Zeta, and this is actually not much at all. The designers did try their best to be economical, but if you look at all of this, which is uniquely molded, it's really hard to ever say that Bandai is shortchanging any of us in any way in this case. So the happy conclusion here is that the Zeta Plus is for sure not made out of convenience or to save money, because Bandai really didn't save much money right here. And because I have them all, here's the Zeta Gundam next to the oldest version of the Zaku Head, and you can see that the Zeta Head is slightly smaller. With only the heads here, we really can't make a Zaku Head Zeta or anything, even though I know you're thinking it. And here's the second version of the Zaku Head, which is slightly in that tacky metallic green plastic. This is the biggest of all the heads and it makes the Zeta one look even smaller. And here's the cousin of that new Zaku Head, the Zaku 1. They come from the same set and they share a lot of the same parts, so this is more like a variant of that one. The metallic color is still quite ugly, even though I really like the Zaku 1. These guys have this really cool functioning light for the mono eye, if you're lucky enough to get them, because you have to draw this part separately from the rest of the head. Next up is the Dom head, which is sized a little closer to the Zeta. They don't really have much to do with each other than how they both stopped having a ton of panel lines all over them. The Dom's mono eye can move like this on the inside, which is really cool. And then here's the RX-78 once again, which looks massive next to the Zeta. The size and the style actually makes them not a very good match on display, which is a shame, and I wish they'd be more in line with one another so they can go on display better. With all that said, here's a Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the Exceed Model Zeta Head. Number 1, they are the best among the Gundam heads. I guess I can say this since I own all the other ones. The Zeta heads here are the best in the entire line so far. Now the Zaku 2 head is really well loved, but that first one there, it really was quite janky, especially with that top part that never sits flush with the bottom, and you know this if you've ever had one. And we've gone through the myriad of issues with the RX-78, which Bandai never bothered to tweak in the many recolors they did of it. It's clear that Bandai's designers specifically addressed those issues on this release, and if you like the Zeta Gundam, you will also benefit from all that experience they've gained from the past releases. Now, I don't mean to rain on the old ones, and I actually still like them too. The Dom in particular is absolutely almost as great as the Zeta in quality, but we can say for sure that the Zeta Head is built upon every lesson learned from the past, both good and bad. And number 2, there are no secrets and there are no duds. Almost anything you get from a draw would be something you're gonna enjoy. And I mean that even for the Unit 3, even though I made fun of it for being the filler of the lineup, it really is that. But it actually has perfectly good uses for builders and painters. And really, in past releases, there never was anything as good as a Zeta Plus, which is nearly an entire unique mold. On top of that, what you see is what you get, and there are no rare and hidden variants, which are always annoying when they have them, because they're usually clear colors or some odd thing, and they're usually really tacky. but they drive completionists crazy for having to pay an extra ton of money to get something that's not particularly good. But here, all your money goes into something of good value. Well, assuming you don't have to draw these from a machine, because I don't know how generous you can still feel if you draw 5 Unit 3 heads in a row and you're still trying to get a Zeta Plus. And number 3, it's a move beyond 0079. This set gives so many fans hope that this line will now explore beyond the 1-year war. I know, we all love the RX-78 and the Zaku, we get it, but our love is spent after— oh god, that's a lot, holy sh. Anyway, I know I was particularly happy to see them do the Zeta Gundam, not only because I love the Zeta, and I do, but also because maybe they'll consider doing other things whenever they're done spamming this mold, because the Zeta Plus has some room for recoloring. If you're a longtime fan of the line like me, it is great to have more variety like this. So that's a review of the Exceed Model Zeta Heads, something new and exciting and a solid purchase, whether you're a fan of the Gundam Heads or Zeta Gundam. Thank you so much for watching. Come look us up on social media with updates on upcoming videos and sneak peeks at future projects, links in the description below. Or hang out here some more with one of these other videos. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified of new videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.